Many Himalayan plants thrive in our cool Scottish climate and are very happy in our garden at Ascreevy near Kirriemuir. In autumn too, the Tibetan gentians make dazzling splashes of blue. And often when I am working amongst them, I think back to those strenuous but happy days when I was fortunate enough to accompany my husband, George Sherriff, and his great friend, Frank Ludlow, on some of their plant hunting expeditions to Tibet and Bhutan. Many of our journeys started in winter, so that we could be in the chosen area to begin collecting in the early spring. We had many high passes to cross and on down into the valleys below, where there were many beautiful plants. Trees and vegetation were with us until we reached the high plateau with its glistening blue lakes and far-stretching plains. One of the highlights of this part of the journey was the beautiful snow mountain Chumulari, with a yak caravan on its way to Lhasa. Now on to our journey down the valley of the river Tsangpo to 300 miles southeast of Lhasa. We kept near the river when possible, but quite often we had to make day tours of 3 to 4 days when the river plunged into deep gorges. We crossed side rivers in these trues, flat-bottomed wooden boats. These took us, all our staff and our horses, and you can see it was quite hard work for the man rowing. Conditions on parts of the route were pretty tough on transport and mulemen, and we were often amazed at the sure-footedness of the animals, and always the beauty of the flowers we saw urged us on. Some of the track was down stony staircases, with the Tsangpo flowing below us. And as we gradually got lower down, we returned to trees and scrubby vegetation. We came upon a few villages, and at this one the villagers were parching their barley meal and making thampa, the staple food of Tibet, which they regard in much the same way as we looked on oatmeal in the old days in Scotland. When we got to cliff faces, such as here, our bullock transport had to be unloaded and the loads manhandled down the worst bits. Women porters hurrying back for second loads. Our transport at this stage was carrying us for 8 days, but you can see from their cheerful and smiling faces of the men that they bore us no grudge. We followed on down the valley and had to cross many side streams and rivers, sometimes by fairly straightforward bridges, but when we had to cross the Po Tsangpo on a 10-day day tour right off the beaten track, we had to cross by a dring or rope bridge. The rope was made of plaited creepers and only repaired when it broke. The people wouldn't allow us to kick our way over, as you see this man doing so expertly. We had to submit to being trussed up like chickens and hauled over. It really was quite an experience. But it was well worthwhile, for as we followed down the valley of the Po Tsangpo, we came into fantastic country. The river valley became a narrow gorge with precipitous hillsides and towering mountains. Lower down we saw these butterflies like small birds. Many plants new to science were discovered by my husband and named after him, such as this lovely little primula, Primula sheriffi, a treasure of the lower altitudes. As you approach Lhasa, you see several monasteries. The most fascinating is the Ki-tsang, the happy nest, plastered onto the cliff, marvelously placed for sunshine, but difficult for water. But then water is mostly used for drinking and cooking in Tibet. And now the Potala, dominating everything, beautiful in summer and beautiful in winter, with its powdering of snow, which evaporates almost as it falls because the atmosphere is so dry. And daily we watch the caravans of donkeys carrying yak dung fuel into Lhasa. The golden roofs of the Dalai Lama's tombs gleamed on the roof of the Potala. They remain untarnished and vandals don't remove the gold leaf. Our house on the banks of the river. Here we had numerous tea and lunch parties for the officials and their wives and for the senior monks. Our sunroom, which my husband built, was a great joy because of the scarcity of fuel. We entertained our guests with cine shows in the winter and found that Charlie Chaplin became a firm favorite. His obvious kind of humor appealed to the Tibetans. A wonderful procession takes place each autumn called the Chipgyu, when all the officials, gloriously dressed and mounted, accompany the Dalai Lama from Nobulinka, his summer palace, to the Potala for the winter. The incense burning along the route gave the whole scene a misty unrealness. The Potala magnificent at the end of the vista. At the end of the New Year celebration, a most colorful procession makes its way to the Potala. A magnificent 300-foot silken banner or tanka with painted pictures of the Buddhas is hauled up the great wall of the Potala and can be seen for miles. Groups of monks and officials hurry up the steps, followed by monks bearing banners. Other monks carry canopies and umbrellas. The band starts up. And then these boy dancers do their funny little jerky dance, which is only done in front of the Dalai Lama. the monks of Dorji Tra Monastery dance and beat their drums on their backs, a pleasant change from the more orthodox method. And then, surprisingly, this elephant comes up the steps and is taken onto the arena. The guardian kings of the four quarters press up the steps and take up their position in the arena. And so the show continues. But of course life was not all parties, processions and ceremonies. We escaped sometimes to the surrounding hills in the summer to look for plants, and in the winter we loved to go down by the frozen Kichu River with our Labrador Jill to play with her, as you see my husband doing now. And we sometimes took our Tibetan friends down to curl with us. We curled with flat stones picked up on the riverbank. The Tibetans were such fun to do things with. They entered into everything with the greatest good humor and friendliness, and we all enjoyed ourselves together. Jill hunted for mouse hairs, always full of hope and never successful. And now we leave Lhasa and the Potala, but please don't let us ever forget the Tibetan people who have lost their world.